On Halloween night, 1992, 4 best friends vanished without a trace in the quiet town of Aurora, Illinois. For years, their mysterious disappearance haunted families, baffled investigators, and became an unsettling local legend. But exactly 27 years later, something chilling emerged from the depths of the city's underground sewers, reigniting the mystery and forcing Aurora to confront secrets it desperately tried to forget. What truly happened to the 4 friends on that fateful night? Aurora, Illinois, always looked like something straight out of an old postcard, especially on Halloween night. In 1992, the town streets came alive with laughter, illuminated by jack-o'-lanterns on every porch and children dressed in vibrant costumes darting from door to door. The crisp autumn air carried sweet aromas of cinnamon, caramel apples, and freshly baked pumpkin pies, blending with the distant crackling of dry leaves underfoot. But beneath Aurora's cozy charm lingered whispers of darker stories, old legends that spoke of shadows hiding in forgotten corners. On this Halloween night, 4 friends stepped eagerly into those shadows, unaware of how deeply they would fall. Danny Porter was 12, tall for his age, athletic and brave, always ready to lead. He wore an iconic Frankenstein costume, complete with green paint carefully spread across his face. Around his neck, Danny proudly wore a silver pendant engraved with a bold D, a precious keepsake from his late uncle, a local hero policeman. Beside him was Billy Shepherd, thin and quiet, wrapped carefully in a simple white ghost costume. Billy's pale face peeked out anxiously from behind the homemade fabric. His blue eyes shifted nervously, absorbing the details of the streets, committing each moment to memory as if preparing for a future he couldn't quite imagine. He tightly clutched a tiny metal toy soldier, believing it brought him luck. The heart of the group was undoubtedly Teddy G.J. Johnson, a round-faced boy dressed in a brightly colored clown outfit, curls poking from under his rainbow wig. TJ's infectious laugh filled any silence, disguising the deep curiosity he carried about the birth parents he never knew. Candy overflowed from his pockets, ready to brighten anyone's night with sweets and smiles. Lastly was Eddie Parker, dressed meticulously as a skeleton, his tall, lanky frame making the costume even more fitting. Eddie's thick round glasses sat firmly on his nose, his serious eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. He gripped his small notebook, already filled with meticulous details from their evening of trick-or-treating. "Are we really going to do this?" Billy asked quietly, his voice trembling. Danny chuckled, gently nudging his friend. "Relax, Billy. It's just an old building. There's nothing scary there." "I heard voices come from there at night," Billy whispered nervously, squeezing the toy soldier harder. TJ laughed, breaking the tension. "Come on, Billy, it's Halloween. Ghost stories are half the fun." Eddie scribbled quickly in his notebook. "The station's been abandoned since 1964. No one's heard voices there. It's just superstition." Billy looked uncertain, but Danny's confident smile was reassuring. "We'll be back before anyone notices we're gone." Their conversation was interrupted by laughter coming from across the street. A group of older boys stood watching them with mocking smirks. "Going trick-or-treating at the baby houses?" sneered Jake Collins, the oldest, known for his mean-spirited pranks. "Or are you brave enough to prove yourselves?" Danny squared his shoulders. "What do you mean, prove ourselves?" Jake pointed towards the shadowy outline of the old Aurora railway station, dark and foreboding in the distance. "Stay 1 hour inside the station, bring something back to prove it, and we'll stop calling you babies." Danny hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Fine, we'll do it." Billy's eyes widened. "Danny, no." Danny placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We're in this together, remember?" With quiet resolve, the boys made their way toward the darkened edge of town. The old station loomed before them, a ghostly silhouette with broken windows and peeling paint. The lights of Aurora faded behind them, replaced by a heavy, uncomfortable silence. The boys stepped cautiously forward, their costumes suddenly feeling thin and inadequate against the chilly night air. Maybe this wasn't a great idea after all, TJ admitted quietly, voice subdued for the first time all evening. Danny forced himself to smile confidently, leading them onward. 1 hour, then we go home. Eddie took notes, glancing around uneasily. Place abandoned, no sign of recent use. High probability of rodent infestation, TJ groaned. Thanks, Eddie, really reassuring. Danny approached the front door, half ajar and creaking slightly in the wind. He paused, turning back to the group. Stay close. Inside, the air felt thick and musty, tinged with mold and rust. Broken benches lined the lobby, once bustling with passengers long gone. Moonlight barely pierced the grimy windows, casting unsettling shapes against the walls. Billy clutched Danny's sleeve, shivering slightly, while TJ tried to joke away. The growing tension. Eddie scribbled furiously in his notebook, hiding his anxiety behind observation. Their footsteps echoed through the hollow building, each creak magnified in the eerie silence. Shadows danced strangely in corners, and every movement felt observed. Suddenly, Billy froze, staring at a corner of the room. "Did you hear that?" Danny paused, straining his ears. "Hear what?" A whisper. Billy stammered, visibly shaking. "Someone said our names." TJ laughed nervously. "Billy, stop it. You're freaking me out." Eddie frowned deeply. Auditory hallucinations common in stressful environments. Before Billy could argue, a sharp, metallic clang echoed through the building, silencing them instantly. Hearts pounding, the boys glanced fearfully around. "Maybe we should leave now," TJ whispered desperately. Danny shook his head, determination in his voice. "We need proof." "Just a little longer." They moved hesitantly deeper inside, down. A narrow hallway lined with cracked walls. Eddie documented every detail, his fingers trembling slightly. Billy held tight to Danny's arm, the toy soldier almost cutting into his palm. Then suddenly, another sound, a low groan, chilling and unmistakably human. Panic surged through them. "Danny." TJ began shakily, voice barely audible. "I don't think." A loud crash cut him off, followed by frantic footsteps. Darkness rushed toward them. Their screams erupted briefly, sharp and terrified, before plunging abruptly into deafening silence. Back in Aurora, neighbors heard those distant screams drifting on the wind, dismissing them as Halloween pranks. The streets slowly emptied, leaving the town quiet and oblivious to the tragedy unfolding. The next morning, a gray and cold dawn broke over Aurora. The boys' families, panic-stricken and desperate, gathered around the abandoned station, police, officers beginning their search. Anxiety spread quickly through town, eroding Aurora's cozy facade as each empty room revealed nothing, no evidence, no explanations. Rebecca Mills, Danny's younger sister, stood frozen near her frantic mother, eyes wide with confusion and fear. She watched officers combing the grounds carefully, calling the boys' names repeatedly. Her gaze fell on a single, empty Halloween bucket lying carelessly discarded near the station's entrance. An officer knelt, carefully lifting something small and shiny from the dirt. Rebecca's heart stopped momentarily as she recognized it instantly, the silver pendant engraved with the letter D. She moved toward it slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "Danny?" The officer turned to her gently, his eyes filled with sympathy as he held the pendant aloft. "Do you recognize this?" Rebecca nodded weakly, tears stinging her eyes. "It's my brother's." Around them, whispers grew louder and fear seeped deeper into Aurora's bones. The cozy, postcard-perfect image fractured, replaced by something unsettling and dark. Buried beneath the autumn leaves, a shadow had settled over Aurora, and no one knew if it would ever lift again. As Rebecca held Danny's pendant tightly, "Ah!" Sudden shout echoed from the back of the station. Investigators had discovered something else hidden deep in the shadows, something that would change everything they thought they knew. The quiet hum of Aurora's morning traffic echoed gently through Rebecca Mills's modest apartment, a soft reminder of the world outside her restless mind. October mornings always unsettled her, but today was particularly harsh. October 31st, Halloween. A day that once brought joy now only reminded her of the darkness that changed everything 27 years ago. Rebecca sat at her kitchen table, a lukewarm cup of coffee forgotten beside her. Her eyes stared vacantly at the small television screen, playing the familiar local news segment, dedicated to the annual reminder of the town's greatest tragedy. The news anchor spoke in a somber tone. "Today marks 27 years since 4 young boys disappeared without a trace from Aurora. Danny Porter, Billy Shepard, Teddy Johnson, and Eddie Parker vanished mysteriously on Halloween night, 1992. Despite countless efforts, no clues or explanations have ever surfaced." Rebecca's jaw tightened, her hazel eyes never leaving the screen. Images flashed, old family photos of smiling faces frozen in time, photos Rebecca knew by heart. Especially Danny's, his mischievous grin immortalized at 12, always brave, always the protector. She instinctively twisted the silver bracelet on her wrist, Danny's final gift to her. Despite nearly 3 decades, the reporter continued, Aurora remains haunted by unanswered questions. Were they lost? Kidnapped? Or was it something darker? Rebecca turned off the television abruptly, frustration boiling in her chest. She stood, her movements stiff, the weight of unresolved grief lingering heavily on her. Halloween always brought that cruel mixture of sorrow and determination. She had joined the Aurora police force at 23, specifically requesting to handle cold cases, hoping to finally uncover something that had slipped through fingers years before. But every anniversary was a harsh reminder of failure. Her cell phone buzzed suddenly, breaking her thoughts. She glanced at the screen and answered immediately. Mills. The voice on the other side belonged to Officer Carl Jackson, an older colleague. Calm yet edged with urgency. Rebecca, you need to get down here. Construction crew found something in the sewers near the old station. It's related to your brother. Her heartbeat quickened painfully, her pulse pounding in her ears. I'm on my way, she replied, already grabbing her coat. Within minutes, Rebecca arrived at the intersection near the abandoned station. Police lights pulsed silently, officers directing curious citizens away. Yellow tape fluttered softly in the autumn breeze, marking the scene. Carl approached immediately, his weathered face grave. Rebecca, brace yourself. What did you find? He hesitated, leading her toward a tented area near a sewer entrance. This morning, city workers were repairing broken pipes in the old sewer system. They found costumes, exactly like the ones your brother and his friends wore when they disappeared. Rebecca felt a chill ripple down her spine. Her vision blurred momentarily, but she steadied herself. Following Carl into the tent. Laid out carefully on a white tarp were 4 costumes, impossibly preserved: Frankenstein, ghost, clown, and skeleton. She stared, breath hitching painfully in her throat. Danny's Frankenstein costume, still vibrant green, mocked her from the plastic-covered ground. The world seemed to slow, memories flooding back with agonizing clarity. Her brother adjusting the jacket, smearing green face paint, grinning at her one last time before heading out that Halloween night. Her fingers shook slightly as she knelt beside the costumes. How is this possible? 27 years underground. Carl shook his head slowly. That's the thing, Rebecca. Forensics already took a preliminary look. These costumes were left recently. The fabric, fibers, everything. It hasn't been down there more than a couple weeks. Her heart dropped. What are you saying? Someone kept these all this time? Carl nodded grimly. It looks that way. Someone deliberately left them here. We don't know why. She touched Danny's costume gently, her mind racing. Anger, sadness, and confusion mixed inside her, but above all else, a renewed sense of purpose ignited. I want this case reopened officially, Rebecca said firmly. No more waiting. No more anniversaries without answers. Carl nodded sympathetically. The chief already approved it. It's yours, Rebecca. We'll support whatever you need. Later that evening, Rebecca sat in her cramped office, surrounded by decades-old boxes labeled Porter Case, 1992. Each photograph, report, and statement she'd memorized years before. But tonight was different. Tonight, something tangible had appeared, a new thread to unravel. Her thoughts drifted to childhood, to Danny's warm presence filling their small home. How she had idolized him, trusted him completely. The pain of loss remained sharp, like it happened only yesterday. Finding answers wasn't just her job. It was her life's mission. She carefully examined each photograph again. Something was still missing, she was sure. Why return the costumes now? A taunt? A message? A soft knock startled her. She turned as Officer Sarah Mitchell entered quietly, holding a folder. Rebecca, I have the initial forensic analysis. Rebecca gestured quickly. Go on. Sarah placed the folder carefully on the desk. They found no traceable DNA, no prints. Whoever did this knew exactly how to stay hidden. Rebecca's shoulders sank slightly. Nothing else. Sarah hesitated. Actually, there was one unusual thing. In the pocket of Billy Shepherd's ghost costume, they found this. Sarah handed Rebecca a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a tiny carved wooden figure, meticulously detailed, a perfect miniature human shape. Rebecca examined it closely, a chill crawling down her spine. Do we know anything about this carving? Sarah shook her head. Not yet, but it doesn't seem random. The detail is uncanny. Rebecca stared at the figure, an unsettling sensation creeping through her. Who would go through such lengths after so long? And why? She thanked Sarah, who left her alone in the dim office, silence settling heavily again. She placed the wooden figure beside Danny's photograph, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. The carving felt symbolic, deliberate clue or a warning. She stood slowly, feeling a wave of exhaustion overtaking her. Yet determination pushed harder. She couldn't stop now. She owed it to Danny, Billy, TJ, and Eddie. She owed it to herself. Before leaving, Rebecca glanced one last time at Danny's smiling photograph. I'll find you, Danny, she whispered softly. I promise. Late that night, unable to sleep, Rebecca found herself standing near the old Aurora station again, illuminated softly by the moon. The building loomed large, its darkness overwhelming. She had avoided coming here alone at night, fearing the memories it brought. But tonight, she had to face it again. She stepped carefully toward the entrance, her breath visible in the cold air. The old wooden door was sealed shut, boards nailed firmly across it. But something caught her attention on the ground, a single small wrapper of candy, bright despite years of dust and decay. She knelt slowly, touching the wrapper carefully. Memories overwhelmed her. Jay's laugh as he stuffed candies in his pockets, Billy's quiet whispers, Eddie's meticulous notes, Danny's protective stance. Tears burned her eyes. She stood quickly, heart pounding. Her intuition screamed that the answers waited somewhere beneath Aurora's peaceful surface. And now, someone was daring her to find them. Rebecca took a deep breath, looking into the station's shadowed windows, feeling watched. "I'm coming for you," she whispered defiantly. "Whoever you are." As she turned to leave, she missed the shadow slipping quietly back into the darkness. Unseen eyes observing her carefully, Rebecca Mills was getting too close. Across town, hidden in an old house filled with memories long buried, another tiny wooden figure was placed carefully next to a photograph of 4 smiling boys. A figure, unseen but breathing deeply, whispered gently into the night, "Welcome back, Rebecca. It's time you finally learned the truth." The shadows of Aurora stirred once more, ready to unleash secrets darker than Rebecca ever imagined. The early morning sun filtered weakly through Aurora's autumn haze as Rebecca Mills stood at the edge of town, gazing at the rusty gate leading to the old Aurora mines. She'd heard stories about this place her entire life, whispered warnings from adults' legends passed down through generations. Now, standing alone in the crisp October air, those childhood warnings felt frighteningly real. Taking a deep breath, she approached the nearby house where an elderly woman named Esther Bailey lived. Esther, now 89, had spent her entire life in Aurora. Locals said no one knew more about the town's hidden history than Esther. Rebecca knocked gently, and after a moment, the door slowly opened. Esther's small, frail frame appeared, her sharp eyes immediately softening upon seeing Rebecca's face. "I was wondering when you'd come," Esther said knowingly. "Come in, dear." Inside the cozy, cluttered living room, Esther poured steaming tea into mismatched cups. Photos of family members lined dusty shelves, each image preserving a piece of Aurora's past. Rebecca took a sip and began carefully. "Mrs. Bailey, what can you tell me about the old mines and tunnels beneath Aurora?" Esther's eyes darkened slightly, fingers tightening around her cup. "Old legends, Rebecca. Stories of people hearing voices from below. Whispers calling their names, luring them underground. Children especially." Rebecca's pulse quickened. "What kind of voices?" Esther sighed softly, her gaze distant. "We called them the subterranean voices. When I was a little girl, miners sometimes said they heard children's laughter deep underground, but no one ever found anyone. Just empty tunnels and darkness. Eventually, the mines shut down and folks stopped speaking of it." Rebecca frowned thoughtfully. "Do you think these voices had something to do with my brother's disappearance?" Esther paused carefully, eyes meeting Rebecca's firmly. "I think some secrets are buried deep for a reason. But perhaps your brother found what he shouldn't." Rebecca nodded slowly, her resolve hardening. She left Esther's home feeling more determined than ever. The voices, the tunnels, the costumes, they were connected. She knew it. Hours later, Rebecca stood near the sewer entrance where the costumes had been discovered. She wasn't alone. Carl and Sarah stood nearby, flashlights in hand. Carl hesitated, voice low. "You sure about this?" Rebecca nodded firmly. "We have to see for ourselves. There's something down there." Together, they descended carefully into the darkness. The air turned colder and damp as they moved deeper underground, their footsteps echoing. Softly, the narrow tunnels branched out beneath Aurora like veins hidden beneath skin. Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. She imagined Danny, Billy, TJ, and Eddie down here, frightened and alone. As their light scanned the walls, Sarah suddenly froze. "Rebecca, over here." Rebecca approached carefully, heart tightening. Illuminated on the damp concrete were faded drawings, clearly made by children's hands. She stepped closer, studying them carefully. The images depicted 4 boys, they're tiny. Figures dressed exactly like Danny and his friends on Halloween night. Surrounding them were dark, shadowy figures, grotesque shapes with blank faces and outstretched hands. The crude artwork conveyed raw fear, anguish, and desperation. "My God," Carl whispered. "Who drew these?" Rebecca's throat tightened. She imagined Danny's hands trembling, Billy's fearful eyes, Eddie desperately trying to document their experience even here, TJ attempting to smile through terror. "They did," Rebecca said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "They were here." Further along, something else caught her eye, a small gap in the wall. She reached carefully inside, feeling something solid beneath her fingers. Slowly pulling it free, her breath caught sharply. In her hand rested 4 carved wooden figures, each eerily detailed. Danny's confident stance, Billy's timid posture, TJ's playful expression, Eddie's careful precision, all frozen in wood. Frighteningly lifelike, Rebecca's hand shook slightly, tears stinging her eyes. "They're perfect," she whispered, emotion choking her words. "Who would make something like this?" Carl stepped forward, examining closely. Someone who watched them closely. Someone who knew them. Rebecca stared at the carvings, realization sinking in deeply. This wasn't just random cruelty, it was intentional, personal. "Esther mentioned miners," Rebecca murmured thoughtfully. "Someone familiar with wood carving, tunnels. Maybe someone who worked down here." Carl nodded gravely. "We'll check old employment records. Anyone linked to the tunnels?" Rebecca wrapped the figures carefully, her heart heavy. "They were left to be found. Someone wants us to know what happened." That evening, after hours poring through dusty records at the town archives, Rebecca felt drained, frustration mounting. Then suddenly, Sarah called out sharply, "Rebecca, look." Sarah held an old photograph, yellowed at the edges. A group of miners posed in front of Aurora mines in the early 1960s. Sarah tapped one figure, a tall, gaunt-faced man holding carving tools, staring at the camera with unsettling intensity. "Who is he?" Rebecca asked urgently. Sarah glanced at the notes. "Robert Elkins, miner and carpenter. Fired in 1965 for unstable behavior." Rebecca studied the face. He seemed disturbingly familiar, despite never meeting him. "Find everything about him," she instructed. "Any connection to the boys?" Sarah nodded immediately, already digging deeper. Rebecca returned home late, placing the wooden carvings carefully on her kitchen table. Exhausted, she stared at them, memories intertwining with unanswered questions. She felt closer than ever, yet haunted by new uncertainties. Suddenly, her phone rang sharply. Rebecca picked it up cautiously, her heart pounding. "Mills," she answered, curtly. The voice was distorted, chilling. "Did you find my gifts, Rebecca?" She stiffened. "Who is this?" Laughter crackled through static. "Just someone who knows the truth. Ask yourself, who else knew those tunnels so well?" The line went dead. Rebecca stood frozen, breath trembling. She glanced at the figures again, dread rising sharply. The following morning, she returned urgently to the archives, determined to uncover more. After several hours, Carl appeared, expression grim. "We found something else," he admitted reluctantly. "In the old municipal records. You need to see this." Rebecca followed Carl into the archive basement, dusty and dimly lit. He handed her an Old file marked Project Aurora Confidential. Opening it, she found papers signed by a familiar name, Dr. Thomas Parker, Eddie's father. Her eyes widened. What is this? Carl explained slowly. Dr. Parker was involved in secretive experiments on sensory deprivation and psychological stress, sponsored quietly by local officials decades ago. Those tunnels were used for some of his tests. Rebecca felt dizzy nausea rising. He experimented down there? Carl nodded sadly. On adults originally, but then something changed. Parker lost control. There's evidence of cover-ups. Rebecca flipped through documents, heart racing. Her eyes paused on a photograph of Dr. Parker standing beside Robert Elkins, the woodcarver miner. They worked together, Rebecca whispered sharply, realization flooding her. Parker hired Elkins. Carl nodded gravely. It seems so. Both vanished shortly after the boys did. Rebecca stared blankly, pieces aligning painfully. The costumes, the wooden carvings, the drawings, all connected back to Eddie's father. The boy's tragedy wasn't random. It was orchestrated by someone she knew personally. She closed the folder tightly, resolve hardening sharply. This mystery wasn't buried, it was carefully hidden. Now, decades later, Aurora's darkest secrets stirred beneath the surface once more. Rebecca knew the truth waited patiently underground, calling softly from the darkness, begging her to find it. Across town, beneath Aurora's quiet streets, someone carefully watched monitors showing Rebecca's investigation. The shadowy figure slowly carved another tiny wooden doll, whispering quietly, "Welcome home, Rebecca. Soon you'll discover how close the truth has always been." The darkness beneath Aurora stirred restlessly, preparing to reveal secrets that would shatter everything Rebecca believed. Rebecca Mills spent the early hours of the next morning poring over the old files from Aurora's municipal archives, her small office cluttered with documents and faded photographs. The discovery linking Eddie Parker's father to a clandestine research project had unsettled her deeply. She now found herself caught between nostalgia for her brother, Danny, and annoying suspicion that those close to her family had hidden terrible secrets. Among the faded files lay an envelope marked Project Aurora, classified. With shaking fingers, she pulled out a bundle of yellowed documents, handwritten notes, and photographs, all belonging to Dr. Thomas Parker. Eddie's father had once been admired in Aurora, a respected scientist whose mind and methods were considered groundbreaking in the field of psychology. Now, reading through his meticulous records, Rebecca realized how little the town had truly known. She paused on a photograph of Dr. Parker, standing proudly beside a sensory deprivation tank in a hidden chamber beneath the old railway station. His confident smile contrasted chillingly with the eerie surroundings. Next to him stood Robert Elkins, the miner known for his unsettling wooden carvings. Both men wore clinical white coats, their expressions disturbingly calm. Rebecca unfolded a carefully typed letter dated September 14, 1984. "We have commenced initial tests using sensory deprivation chambers beneath Aurora. My goal is clear: to explore the human mind's reaction to extreme isolation and possibly unlock methods of enhancing mental resilience. Early results have been promising, though I remain cautious. My colleague, Robert Elkins, shows enthusiasm, though his methods worry me. I fear his fascination borders on obsession." Rebecca frowned, sensing a growing unease in Dr. Parker's words. The next pages were fragmented diary entries, scribbled hastily, depicting a rapid descent into ethical ambiguity. March 3, 1985, something troubling has occurred. I discovered Elkins using children's voices during a sensory isolation session. When confronted, he argued the use of fear might yield stronger results. I ordered him to stop immediately. This is not the project's goal. I will monitor him closely. She flipped forward anxiously, noticing the increasingly chaotic handwriting. Another entry stood out clearly. July 11, 1987. Elkins defied orders again. The town council insists we continue, disregarding my warnings. I suspect influential figures are manipulating results. I fear I'm losing control. Eddie must never know my involvement. Rebecca swallowed hard, the realization striking painfully. Dr. Parker's remorse was palpable, yet guilt overshadowed his every word. The records continued sporadically until Halloween week of 1992, suddenly ceasing the day the boys disappeared. The final entry read simply, October 30th, 1992, tomorrow. Everything ends. They're planning something monstrous. I must stop it before more innocents suffer. Rebecca's heart raced. Dr. Parker vanished shortly after Danny and the boys did. Had he tried to intervene? Or had he failed miserably, caught in his own experiments? Twisted consequences? Suddenly, she sensed movement outside her window, shadows shifting subtly behind closed blinds. Goosebumps prickled her skin. Slowly, she rose, stepping toward the door. A glance through the window revealed an empty street, silent beneath moonlight. Yet an uneasy feeling lingered. Determined, Rebecca gathered crucial documents into her bag and left quickly, locking her office tightly behind her. Night had fully embraced Aurora. Rebecca walked briskly toward her car, parked alone beneath flickering streetlights. The air felt unnaturally still, her instincts screaming she was not alone. Glancing around nervously, she quickened her pace. A shadow darted in her peripheral vision, causing her pulse to spike. She spun sharply, nothing visible but the darkness of empty storefronts. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, gripping her keys tightly. Footsteps echoed softly behind her. Rebecca turned again sharply, spotting a figure in dark clothing slip behind a building. Her adrenaline surged, heart-hammering dot breaking into a run. She dashed toward her car. A heavy breath echoed behind her. Footsteps quickened in pursuit. Panic surged. Rebecca fumbled desperately with the keys, finally unlocking the door and scrambling inside. As she locked herself in, a dark silhouette slammed violently against the window, pounding fiercely on the glass. Rebecca screamed instinctively, flooring the accelerator. The car roared away from the curb, leaving the shadowy attacker behind in darkness. Tears blurred her vision as she sped through deserted streets, her chest heaving in terror. Minutes later, shaking uncontrollably, Rebecca pulled into a brightly lit parking lot near the police station. Only now did her breathing steady slightly, her mind desperately trying to process what had just happened. Who had attacked her? Who wanted her silenced? Her thoughts were interrupted by a shrill ringing her phone, vibrating insistently from the passenger seat. She hesitated, then answered cautiously, voice trembling. "Who is this?" A distorted voice spoke coldly through static. "You're getting close, Rebecca. Too close. Stop digging, or you'll suffer like Danny." She froze, breath catching painfully. "Who are you?" The line crackled harshly. "Consider this your only warning. Silence." Rebecca lowered the phone slowly, fear mixing with furious determination. Whoever threatened her knew her brother intimately enough to use his memory against her. The next day, Rebecca gathered Carl and Sarah privately in a secluded office at the Aurora police station, recounting the terrifying chase and threats. Carl's jaw tightened angrily. "We must involve the chief. Someone in town knows more than they're saying." Rebecca shook her head slowly. "No, the letters mentioned the town council people high up covering this whole thing. We trust no one outside this room." Sarah frowned deeply, voice cautious. What if Parker wasn't guilty? What if he genuinely tried stopping whatever happened in those tunnels? Rebecca sighed heavily. That's exactly what frightens me. Dr. Parker clearly opposed Elkins and someone powerful. That means the real mastermind might still be here, hiding in plain sight. Carl leaned forward urgently. Rebecca, you need protection. Someone's watching every move you make. She paused thoughtfully, resolve strengthening. If they're watching me, I'll use that. I'll flush them out by going deeper. Sarah hesitated. How? Rebecca stood firmly, eyes blazing with determination. We return to the tunnels beneath Aurora. We find exactly what they want hidden. Once we expose the truth, they can't hide anymore. Later that evening, Rebecca sat quietly in her darkened apartment, organizing her thoughts. Beside her lay the tiny carved wooden figures Danny, Billy, TJ, and Eddie. Their silent wooden faces stared up at her, a constant reminder of lives stolen, innocence destroyed. Rebecca felt tears threaten again but held them back firmly. She wouldn't falter not. Now, not ever. She owed Danny too much to surrender. Her phone lit up suddenly, jolting her sharply. Another message appeared, an anonymous text from a blocked number. You should have stopped when warned. Now, you'll regret pushing further. Rebecca closed her eyes tightly, anger flaring sharply within her. Aurora held countless secrets, buried deep within darkness and silence for decades. Now those secrets stirred awake, threatening to consume everyone who dared disturb them. She glanced again at Danny's carved wooden figure, remembering his protective grin, his confident bravery. I won't stop, she whispered defiantly into the dark. Not until everyone knows what happened to you. Outside her apartment, beneath a dim street lamp, the same shadowy figure watched patiently, silently carving yet another small wooden doll, its delicate face carefully formed into Rebecca's unmistakable likeness. The figure whispered softly, into the cold night, eyes glittering with malevolence. Then prepare yourself, Rebecca. Because some truths are far worse than any nightmare. Hidden beneath Aurora, deep within the abandoned tunnels, someone placed Rebecca's freshly carved wooden figure beside 4 smaller ones. Whispered laughter echoed hauntingly through darkness, signaling that Aurora's darkest secret was finally ready to surface, changing everything Rebecca thought she knew forever. Rebecca stood in front of the old Aurora train station, shivering slightly in the bitter autumn night. The familiar silhouette loomed menacingly under a thin crescent moon, its darkened windows like vacant, accusing eyes. She'd come alone, ignoring Carl's insistence to accompany her. This journey was personal, too painful, too sacred. It had to be faced alone. Taking a deep breath, Rebecca pushed aside the wooden boards covering the main entrance, squeezing carefully through the narrow gap. The stale scent of mildew and decay hit her immediately, conjuring vivid, painful memories. She could almost hear the distant laughter of children, the laughter of Danny, Billy, TJ, and Eddie, before everything went terribly wrong. Rebecca clicked on her flashlight, sweeping the beam cautiously across the lobby, heart racing. Her footsteps echoed softly as she navigated familiar yet alien corridors, retracing the path the boys must have taken all those years ago. Descending slowly into the subterranean network, the air became colder, damper. The narrow tunnels twisted downward into oppressive darkness. As she moved deeper, Rebecca felt an unsettling sensation like the tunnels were alive, watching her every move. She paused, heart hammering, recognizing the faded drawings from before. She pushed further, driven by instinct, until she noticed something previously overlooked, a section of wall that seemed strangely misaligned. Rebecca approached, heart racing. With effort, she pushed against the wall, which swung open silently, revealing a hidden chamber behind. Stepping inside cautiously, her breath caught sharply. The small, secret room was sparse, disturbingly clinical in appearance. A rusted bed frame with tattered blankets stood in one corner. Shelves lined the walls, cluttered with empty food cans, cracked plastic cups, and worn books. Faded photographs pinned to a wooden board depicted 4 smiling boys, their innocent eyes frozen forever in happier times. Her pulse quickened as her flashlight revealed a small, leather-bound notebook placed carefully atop the bed. Rebecca approached, slowly, fingers trembling as she lifted it. On the cover, written clearly in familiar handwriting, was a single name. Eddie Parker. Rebecca sat heavily on the bed, her chest tightening painfully. Gently, reverently, she opened Eddie's diary, the brittle pages revealing meticulous notes. Her heart shattered further with each line, Eddie's voice clear through careful, frightened handwriting. November 2nd, 1992. We've been here for 2 days now. It's cold and dark. The man won't let us leave. TJ keeps crying quietly. Danny keeps trying to reassure us we'll escape, but I don't know anymore. Rebecca's throat tightened, eyes blurred with tears. She continued reading, heart aching deeper with each passage. November 10th, 1992. The man keeps making us stay in total darkness for hours. Billy screams sometimes. He says he hears whispers. I pretend I'm strong, but I'm scared too. Danny won't stop planning our escape. Rebecca closed her eyes briefly, vividly picturing Danny's courageous face, brave, protecting his friends even in unimaginable darkness. She turned further, dread growing steadily as entries became shorter, more desperate. November 24th, 1992. I saw something tonight. The man talked to someone through the wall. One of us is helping him. I don't want to believe it, but there's no other explanation. Who would betray us? Rebecca's stomach twisted painfully. One of them a betrayer? The thought seemed impossible. December 5th, 1992. Billy barely speaks anymore. TJ stopped laughing days ago. Danny won't admit it, but he knows something is very wrong. The man knows all our plans. Someone among us is telling him. Rebecca paused, emotions overwhelming. The agony Eddie documented resonated sharply, making the betrayal even more unbearable. The entries became increasingly fragmented. Eddie's handwriting shaky, desperate. December 24th, 1992. Christmas Eve. I miss Dad. I miss home. Why won't someone come for us? Danny promised we'd make it home, but he doesn't sound sure anymore. Someone betrayed us, and now we're trapped forever. Rebecca could barely continue. Each word was a dagger in her heart. Memories of Christmas with Danny flooded painfully back. Bright lights, their mother's laughter, Danny's protective arm around her shoulder. She flipped ahead, her fingers numb with grief, landing finally on the last legible page. January 1st, 1993. He's going to separate us tomorrow. This might be my last chance to write. I discovered the traitor tonight. It was. Rebecca's heart stopped as she saw the next page had been brutally torn out. Panic surged through her. Eddie had discovered the betrayer, but someone had removed the evidence. She held the diary tightly, her breathing uneven. Eddie, Danny, Billy, T.A. all had suffered unimaginably, betrayed by one they trusted. But who? Suddenly, a distant sound jolted Rebecca sharply. A faint whisper echoed through the tunnels. A childlike voice murmuring her name. Rebecca. Terror gripped her. She rose quickly, stuffing Eddie's diary into her jacket. Footsteps echoed. Closer now, heavy and threatening. She had to leave immediately, rushing back through dark tunnels, heart pounding, her flashlight beam dancing frantically. Rebecca finally burst from the station, breathing heavily. tears streaking her face. She stood trembling beneath cold moonlight, feeling overwhelmed and utterly vulnerable. Just then, her phone rang sharply, startling her further. She answered instinctively, voice shaking. "Who is this?" The distorted voice spoke slowly, deliberately. "Rebecca, you found Eddie's diary, didn't you? Good, but you're not done yet. If you really want the truth, go to Dr. Parker's old house. There's a box hidden there. Open it, and you'll see everything." Rebecca's throat tightened painfully. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" The voice hesitated briefly, breathing heavily, before whispering softly, "Because the truth can't remain hidden anymore. But be warned, the truth might destroy you." The line went silent, leaving Rebecca shaking uncontrollably beneath Aurora's shadowy skyline. She knew she had no choice. She had to finish what began nearly 3 decades ago. Gazing back at the station, haunted and dark, Rebecca whispered softly into the night, "I'm coming for you, Danny. I'll find the truth. Whatever it takes." Rebecca Mills stood silently in front of Dr. Parker's abandoned house, her heart hammering beneath the midnight sky. Moonlight illuminated the building, its windows shattered, walls peeling and shadowed in sinister neglect. The property had long been avoided by Aurora's residents, a tangible embodiment of secrets better left buried. Yet tonight, Rebecca knew the final answers awaited her within these crumbling walls. Summoning her courage, she carefully pushed open the front door, creaking loudly as decades of silence gave way to her entrance. Inside, a chilling quiet enveloped her immediately, thick and oppressive. Her flashlight beam danced across walls scarred by time, revealing faded wallpaper, family photos barely visible beneath layers of dust. Eddie Parker's innocent face smiled back at her, frozen in happier, forgotten days. A painful lump formed in Rebecca's throat, knowing how tragically that innocence had been betrayed. Moving deeper into the house, Rebecca stepped cautiously over broken furniture, shattered glass crunching beneath her feet. A heavy presence seemed to watch her every move, pressing down on her shoulders. Determined, she pushed onward, her light landing on a narrow staircase descending to a basement, its darkness thick and unsettling as she descended. Cold air wrapped around her, and memories of the tunnels flooded painfully back. At the bottom step, her flashlight illuminated a heavy metal box resting atop a rusted table. Its sturdy lock gleamed in the pale beam of light. Her pulse quickened sharply. She forced the lock open, metal snapping loudly in protest. Inside lay carefully stacked documents, yellowed photographs, handwritten letters, each item silently holding the weight of truth long hidden beneath Aurora's surface. Rebecca lifted a letter carefully, immediately recognizing Dr. Parker's precise handwriting. "I've lost control. The experiments were supposed to explore human resilience, not cruelty. I begged them to stop, but they wouldn't listen. Now, innocent lives hang in the balance. If something happens, know that I tried to stop it. The true monster among us is Sheriff William Foster. He has twisted my research for his own dark ambitions. May God forgive me." Rebecca felt the breath ripped from her chest. Sheriff Foster, beloved, trusted by all of Aurora, had been the hidden puppeteer. Anger flared within her as she sifted through more evidence. Photographs of Foster overseeing experiments, falsified documents hiding his involvement, reports detailing his manipulation of the town's narrative. Everything became terrifyingly clear. Foster had used Dr. Parker's research to instill fear, maintaining control through orchestrated disappearances, while Parker had been powerless, tormented by guilt. The sheriff's respected public persona had masked pure malevolence. Rebecca stood frozen, fury and grief intertwining sharply. Her brother, Danny, and his friends had been mere pawns in Foster's twisted game. Suddenly, her phone buzzed sharply, pulling her back to reality. Carl's voice urgently filled her ear. "Rebecca, where are you?" "We've been searching for you." "I have everything," she responded breathlessly. "The truth about Foster, about Danny, everything." Carl hesitated. "Rebecca, Foster's dead. He passed years ago." Rebecca closed her eyes, sadness mixing with relief. "He can't escape justice, Carl. The town deserves the truth." "Bring the evidence to the station immediately," Carl urged gently. It's time Aurora knew. News of Sheriff Foster's betrayal shatters Aurora's calm, sending shockwaves of grief and anger through the town. At a packed press conference, Rebecca publicly reveals that Foster twisted Dr. Parker's research to control the community and cause the deaths of her brother Danny, Billy, TJ, and Eddie. Aurora responds with tears, applause, and the swift demolition of the old station, replacing it with a memorial park honoring the boys. Standing before Danny's statue, Rebecca finally feels a sense of peace. Yet as Halloween night falls, faint childlike whispers drift through the streets, hinting that some shadows still linger beneath Aurora's surface. Despite the town's healing, its scars and the echoes of the past remain.